Uber CEO is lashing out at New York City in very strong words after the city decided to make their vehicle cap permanent.
Xbox, Twitter, Uber,
Postmates,
Netflix, MoviePass,
Google,
eBay,
DoorDash,
Apple, Amazon, Airbnb,
The Apptrepreneur. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur, and we have to return to the subject of New York City putting a vehicle cap in the city ordinance. Now, this has been covered before by me, other people. There's still a lot of mixed reactions about whether or not this is actually a good thing. On one hand, you have some people saying, hey, I have more opportunities for rides, the streets are less cluttered, so it's a good thing. And then you have other people who fell on the other side, like, I didn't drive enough to qualify to be part of one of the vehicles. I find myself I can't log on very much, and it's just, and of course Uber has very big issues because they can't, flood the streets with their vehicles. Oh yeah, and Lyft sued New York City because somehow putting a vehicle cap on the vehicles, that gave Uber an unfair advantage somehow. And then I think Uber sued New York or San Francisco, something like that, because of the monopoly that Lyft had on the bike market, something like that. Anyway, it's just a couple multi-billion-dollar valued companies going to war with each other. I mean, it's a shame General Motors or Ford can't come in and like, hey guys, be nice. However, on the latest earnings conference call, Uber CEO Darkar Shahi actually had some very unkind things to say about New York City, and while it's technically not new news, I think it's kind of fun to go over and see what was said. However, before we talk about any of that, let's have a word from our sponsors. Times are changing for gig workers and the gig economy, and there are a lot more gigs from a lot more companies than there used to be. That's why when people ask me where they can go to find resources for the gig economy, I recommend gigworker.com. At this site, you can see what other gig workers are doing and discover better opportunities from industries, companies, resources, and even a forum where you can talk with other people in the gig economy. Gigworker.com is a great resource site, whether you work for Uber, Lyft, Postmates, DoorDash, TaxRabbit, Thumbtack, Upwork, whatever. There's a gig for you and there's a forum for you on gigworker.com. Gigworker.com for all your gigs. Uber and Lyft are lashing out at New York City regulators over Malarkey vehicle caps. Now, for those of you who are unaware of what Malarkey means, I've got the description right here. It's kind of cut off, but it's meaningless talk nonsense. That's what it means. It's funny how, that's what made it into the headline, because it's so like Uber to, instead of saying this is stupid, for them to say, this is a malarkey, and it actually gets people having to stop and say, what's malarkey mean? And look at it like, oh, it means nonsense. So, good on them for actually kind of distracting from what they were saying by forcing some people to look up what it means, but let's continue. So, Uber and Lyft are lashing out at New York City regulators for continuing to restrict the number of ride-sharing vehicles permitted to operate in the city, the latest in a series of regulations in their industry. The new rules could potentially restrict where, when, how drivers can work, and we just don't think that's good for New Yorkers, Uber CEO Darkar Shahi said in the ride-hailing group's earnings call this week. Anyone who thinks that the changes in New York City are good, that's malarkey, frankly. Well, here's the thing. That's not the reason Uber is protesting the limitations on New York City. In fact, it's their talking point, but the reason they don't care about the drivers. This has been very, very clear. They say, the issue is how, where, when, how drivers can work. You know what? If that was Uber's biggest concern, frankly, they would have. They should look in the mirror and look at some of the things they're doing and change some of their own things. Like that Michael Jackson song, you've got to look in the mirror. It's like, so, Uber cuts rates, forces people to work longer to make the same amount of money that they did a few months ago. They time their promotions. It's not just, hey, if you do 20 rides today, you get a bonus. It's like, if you do 20 rides within this time frame, you get a bonus. So no, Uber is actually controlling the drivers, and they're doing it in very subtle ways. So Uber, if you are telling New York that you don't like their stance because that is a limitation on how the drivers can earn money. If you honestly believe that, that's malarkey. That's malarkey. So, yeah, that was an obvious pun coming up. But here's the thing: the call came after Uber shocked investors by losing more money than expected, sending the shares tumbling. And you see, they reported this after saying, "Hey, we lost all this money, but look at New York. They are hurting us. They're really, really hurting us. They are hurting us by telling our drivers when they can and can't drive." And how does that? And when they say that, what they're really saying is, "Hey, look, we can't have as many vehicles on the road for New York City. So you know what? Blames the losses partly on New York. They're limiting our ability to make money. We can't have as many vehicles out there, therefore we can't make more money." Because again, I'm going to explain this to you once again, folks. The more drivers there are on the road, the more Uber makes. That means there's more transactions. Uber collects their money from the fees and the transactions and the booking fees. Meanwhile, drivers have more and more competition to face. They don't get as many passengers, and they end up driving around putting a lot of wear and tear on the vehicle and wasting gas for no reason. So anyway, let's continue. The city's Taxi and Limousine Commission voted last year to stop issuing new licenses for for-hire vehicles for 12 months and extended that cap for another year on Wednesday. It also ruled that in a year's time, drivers will only be allowed to spend 31% of their time cruising without a passenger below 96th Street in Manhattan, down from 41% currently. Karashahi said the city was essentially introducing another medallion system, referring to the set number of New York City taxi licenses available. That system is ripe for abuse by people in power, and it's happened in the past, and the city could be setting itself up again. That's another ironic thing to state because, yeah, the medallion system has been abused by companies because most of the taxi drivers you see, they don't own their own medallion. They are leasing that medallion from a company that owns the medallion. And because the medallions are rare, that rose the price where it's like an average person had a very difficult time getting a medallion. Yet the medallion was introduced because of this very thing with Uber and Lyft. The medallion system came because when anyone could get into a taxi, it cluttered the streets. People couldn't make money. The wages were artificially low. I mean, look, there's so much history about this. The taxi industry did not become profitable and fair until it was regulated. And I'm sorry, I don't 100% believe that, getting rid of it is the right step. I do believe in limiting the cars. I do believe in giving the drivers a little bit more power. What's interesting, of course, is that they're talking about the system is ripe for abuse by people in power. And when Uber and Lyft, they are abusing the power system they have. It's like, oh, it's our platform. We can tell you what you make. Like, we don't even need the medallion system to screw you over. We just tell you. And there you have it. So, again, very ironic thing for Dara Khosrowshahi to be saying. New York City officials have taken multiple steps to regulate the ride-hailing industry. In December, the TLC introduced a minimum wage per trip for high-volume drivers that corresponds to $27.86 an hour or $17.22 after expenses. Again, it doesn't quite work out that way, but, no time to get into it now. In April, the city introduced a congestion charge of $2.75 for each trip into the congestion zone below 60th Street in Manhattan. Uber and Lyft have raised their prices to offset the higher costs because, of course, you have to do that. Lyft is aligned with regulators' goals of boosting drivers' earnings and cutting congestion, president and co-founder John Zimmer said on the group's earnings call this week. However, quote, "We don't believe the rules as written today do the best for those two aspects," he said. "They actually create negative consequences for both drivers and riders. Any increase in prices can lead to a decrease in driver work opportunities because of less rides. That's the point we're trying to get across. Also, when there's less rides, we make less money. Because again, Lyft and Uber, they're not the ones driving around aimlessly. They're not the ones who pay for the wear and tear in the vehicles and the gas and everything. They're just saying like, hey, there's fewer rides, so we're making less money. But hey, they could raise the price and not give any of it to the driver. So, whatever. Uber is now growing fastest in wealthier areas where consumers can stomach higher fares, Khosrowshahi said. However, demand has stalled in neighborhoods such as Central Harlem and Wakefield, Bronx, where poor residents have been priced out and left with fewer viable transportation options, he's added. I know someone who lives in the Bronx, and he said, oh, people take Uber all the time. I mean, granted, Uber has the data. I'm sure if they wanted to release it and share it with us, they could very well do that, but they choose not to. So chosen not to. So, there you go. CarShaw here proposed a better path forward would be retaining drivers' independent status while granting them protections such as minimum earnings and benefits and a voice in decision that affect their livelihoods. We think it's a win-win. Yeah, I agree. I believe that is a win-win. Of course, we've been saying that would be a win-win for like 4 years now, maybe 3. We've been saying that for a long, long time, and Uber and Lyft didn't start taking that seriously until they started to get regulated. So here's the thing. We definitely know who fair looks like to Uber. So anyway, I think these are just hilarious comments. When I read these comments, what it seems like Uber and Lyft are thrashing. They know they're going down with the sinking ship. You can see the other video, huge quarterly losses, firing people, putting a freeze on new hires. They know that they can't survive this a whole lot longer. So what do? They thrash. They're swinging and they hope that they hit someone and that it goes out their way. But it's probably not going to work out their way. I mean, I suspect we'll be talking about them for a few more years at the very least, but they will eventually go out of business at some point. I've been predicting it for a while. It's not going to happen as fast as I had initially thought, but who knows? Because investors are starting to abandon them as, we checked out the stock and the stock's just going down, down, down. But I think what's going to happen is Uber stock will at some point get to $10 or less. I think it's going to get there. And then you'll have like a Tesla or a General Motors or a Ford or Toyota. One of those companies will probably buy Uber or Lyft, whoever goes under $10 first, because they do have an app that works. They all want to get into their autonomous vehicles, taxi industry service thing. But hey, why create your own system when you can buy the competition and it's a well-named brand? Like, why do that? So that's what I think is going to happen. But of course, who knows? I will pass the question off to you. Do you believe this is going to happen? What do you make of these comments? Do you think this is all malarkey, or do you think Dara doth protest too much? I would love to know. So comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way to helping the channel run smoothly. Sharing the videos helps with the algorithm. YouTube no longer recommends my videos, or a lot of people, so not just for me, but everyone, share the videos if you want more content from them. If the gas prices are getting just a little down, check out the Get Upside app below. It's totally free, but you get cash back on every gas purchase. If you want more content from me that's not rideshare related, check out my other YouTube channels, Kevin T. Rodriguez, the Apptrepreneur Vlogs, and Autograph Hound. And if you want to talk to me or other fellow rideshare drivers about Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, whatever, check us out on Facebook at the Apptrepreneur Hangouts. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.